Maybe no one told you this, but the need to always correct others isn't about truth. It's about control. And beneath that, far beneath, there's something even quieter. Fear. Yes, I said fear. Not of the person in front of you, but of the mirror behind them. We correct not just to enlighten, but to affirm to ourselves, I still matter. I still know. I'm still right. It feels noble, righteous even, but often it's a disguise, a mask our ego wears when it feels unseen, unvalued, or uncertain. You feel it, don't you? That tightening in your chest when someone says something you disagree with? That sharp breath before the sentence leaps from your lips? Actually, that's not correct. What are we really trying to fix in those moments? Their words or our worth? I've seen this dynamic play out in boardrooms and backyards, among scholars and shopkeepers alike. A man once stood after one of my talks and said, "Mr. Carnegie, I correct others because I care. I don't want them to walk around being wrong." But what he meant was, I can't bear for someone else to seem more informed than me. I feel invisible when I'm not the smartest voice in the room. And I told him gently, then your correction isn't compassion. It's camouflage. There's a reason why the Proverbs say, even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise. Silence can be strength. Stillness can be grace. I'm not telling you to abandon discernment. I'm asking you to examine your motive. I've learned, painfully, slowly, that most people don't need correction. They need connection. And you can't connect when you're busy correcting. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman I knew, a teacher by trade, but a warrior by habit. Every dinner conversation was a battleground. Every opinion was a challenge. She didn't realize that beneath her sharp intellect was a bruised spirit, someone who'd grown up feeling dismissed, invisible, unheard. So she sharpened her tongue to prove she mattered. It took losing a friendship she cherished, not in an argument, but in a quiet exit, for her to see what was driving her. She told me later, I wasn't trying to help. I was trying not to disappear. My friend, when you feel the urge to correct someone, pause. Ask, am I speaking from truth or from a wound that wants to be right? There's a sacred kind of humility that grows in the soul when we realize we don't have to win every conversation. And I've come to believe that real wisdom is not in having the right answer. It's in knowing when not to speak it. Maybe you've been hurt before, ignored, dismissed, or belittled. And now, every time someone says something inaccurate, it triggers something deeper. Not because it's wrong, but because it reminds you of how often you were made to feel small. What if I told you that you don't need to defend your intelligence to deserve respect? You don't need to correct to be seen. You don't need to interrupt to matter. You don't need to fix people to feel secure. Correction born from fear is noise. Correction born from love is silence, until invited. There was a passage I once heard in a monastery. The wise man teaches not with words, but with presence. For the voice that carries peace speaks louder than the mouth that proves right. I've known powerful men who were always right, but always alone. And I've known quiet souls who made others feel safe, and whose presence changed everything, even without a word. So ask yourself, what's the legacy of your presence? Do people feel lifted when you speak, or diminished? Let me bring you to a personal moment of mine. Many years ago, I stood backstage before a lecture. A young man approached me, eager, anxious. He quoted one of my earlier lessons, but he got it wrong, very wrong. My first instinct? To correct him, to protect my truth. But something in his eyes stopped me. He wasn't quoting to show off, he was quoting to belong. So I smiled and said, "You remembered something that mattered to you. That's what counts." Later that evening, he stayed back. He said, "No one ever made me feel smart before." And I thought to myself, what if I had chosen ego over empathy? What would I have stolen from that moment? You don't need to correct people to guide them. You can be a lighthouse, not a loudspeaker. God never shouts the truth at us. He whispers it in stillness. Maybe we can do the same for each other. We are not here to be perfect mirrors of knowledge. We are here to reflect something deeper, grace. Have you noticed that the people who feel most compelled to prove themselves are often the ones still healing from being unseen? I see it all the time. The over-explainer, the constant fact-checker, the quick rebuttal artist. They are not trying to be difficult. They're just trying not to feel invisible. But, my friend, being right is a small victory. Being kind, that is eternal. There's a man I once taught, a professor, brilliant in mind, but brittle in heart. He could dismantle any argument with surgical precision. But his students feared him. His children avoided him. His wife once told me, "He always wins debates, but he's lost our trust." Eventually, even he broke. He confessed to me one day, "I don't want to be feared anymore. I want to be felt." That's when the healing began. And perhaps that's the lesson for all of us. Are we being heard, or are we being held? Are we impressing or connecting? Maybe no one told you this, but your silence can be a sanctuary. You can choose to listen, truly listen, without preparing your rebuttal in the back of your mind. You can let someone be wrong and still love them. That, my dear friend, is spiritual maturity. The Bible says in James 1:19, "Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath." It's not a suggestion, it's a path to peace. Not every moment needs your correction. Sometimes it needs your compassion. Not every error requires a verdict. Sometimes it needs a gentle witness. And what if letting someone hold their opinion with dignity teaches more than correcting them ever could? You don't need to be the loudest voice to be the most powerful presence. Stillness speaks, grace teaches, presence heals. And the most beautiful change happens not when we correct someone, but when we inspire them, quietly, by how we carry ourselves. I want you to imagine this. You're sitting across from someone you love, and they're saying something you disagree with, maybe even something that hurts you a little. But instead of correcting them, you breathe. You stay present. You choose not to react, but to remain rooted. That moment, that pause, is sacred, because in it you are not proving anything. You are choosing love over ego, connection over correctness. Now, I'm not suggesting we abandon truth, but truth without tenderness becomes a weapon. And we weren't meant to wound each other with knowledge. We were meant to warm each other with wisdom. I've lived long enough to know that the people who listen, really listen, change more hearts than those who lecture. And I've seen how silence can often say what words never could. I hear you. I see you. Even if I don't agree, I choose not to fight you. There was a woman once, elderly, weathered by life, yet radiant with calm. She rarely spoke in meetings, but when she did, everyone leaned in. Her daughter told me, she says very little, but when she does, it's like truth sits down beside you. That's what I wish for you. Not to be the loudest, but to be the light. You see, there's a trap in always needing to be right. It shrinks the soul. It turns the heart into a courtroom, where every moment is a trial, and every person is a witness or a threat. But when you surrender the need to win, you gain something far greater: peace, not just with others, but within yourself. True power is quiet. True wisdom is gentle. And true love, it does not insist on its own way. Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 13, "Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way." Isn't that what correction often is? Insisting on our way? What if today you practiced letting go, just once? What if you allowed someone to be imperfect without stepping in to fix them? What might that do for them, for you? That's your gentle challenge. Don't correct, don't defend. Just breathe, be present, and listen with love. Because sometimes the most healing thing we can offer is silence filled with grace. So now I ask you, with all the quiet conviction in my heart, what would it feel like to let go of the need to be right? What would open up inside you if you no longer saw every conversation as a test, but as a chance to love more deeply? There's something beautifully liberating about choosing not to react. It's not passivity, it's power, sacred, silent, and strong. I've known men who led nations with calm voices. I've known women who shaped families with unshakable peace. They didn't argue, they didn't interrupt. They embodied truth, and that was enough. You don't need to be more convincing. You need to be more whole. Because when your sense of self is intact, you no longer depend on being right to feel worthy. You no longer reach for correction to validate your place. You stand, steady, still, soft-spoken. and yet unmistakably powerful. That's what the world needs right now. Not more noise, not more critique, but presence, kindness, and the rare grace of someone who listens without judgment. It starts small, a moment of restraint, a conscious breath, a whispered prayer. God, help me see this person not as wrong, but as human. And if you fall, if you catch yourself interrupting or correcting again, forgive yourself quickly. This is not a performance. This is a practice. You are not perfect, but you are worthy of peace. And every time you choose presence over pride, you return to who you really are. So today, let this be your quiet revolution. Correct less, connect more, speak less, listen deeper, and let truth rise, not from your words, but from the way you love. Because the greatest lesson I ever learned wasn't in a classroom. It was in a moment of stillness, when I finally realized, I don't need to win. I need to be whole. And so do you. Walk gently today, my friend, with grace in your eyes, with peace in your breath, with dignity in your silence. You are not here to argue. You are here to awaken. Let that be enough.